So you're good, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'd like to introduce our opening keynote at Skoudis. And Ed has been a dear friend of mine for a number of years. And he's one of the people that I admire and respect in this industry. One that, again, from a community perspective, a positive influence. When there's a saying from one of my favorite TV shows, Doctor Who, which is, we're all stories in the end. Let's just hope that yours is a good one. And from an Ed perspective, he's one of the people that I look up to, and I know Ed's story will always be a good one. So Ed, thank you. Welcome to DerbyCon, and thank you for keynoting.
Thank you, Dave. I love you, buddy.
I love you.
Okay, well, hey, just wait one sec. I need you here for just a sec. Thank you guys for coming out. I am so happy you're here, but should I do it? Should I go through with it? You sure you want me to do this? All right, guys, I gotta be honest with you. Dave didn't want to say it because he's a little embarrassed. But you've heard the rumors, right? Have you heard them? All right, I'll just say it outright. DerbyCon is canceled. And I don't mean next year, I mean this year. There was an off by one error in some code that Dave wrote. That's why he didn't want to announce it. So DerbyCon 8 was the last DerbyCon. So if you guys wouldn't mind, you just file out of here. Martin and Adrian are going to be in the back. They'll collect your badges, and we'll enjoy the weekend, okay? All right, thanks.
See y'all later.
Okay, let's just have a conference. Now, one thing let me put my talk up here. All right, can you all see that? All right, one thing I learned last night is when you have a talk, it's kind of new and experimental. I just wrote this recently, or the last 3 weeks. When you have a talk that's kind of new and experimental and you don't know how it's going to go, it could go great, it could be a disaster. I do know how to end it now. I learned this last night. One of the things that you can do at the end of your talk is lather yourself up with a whole bunch of shaving cream and turn your body into sculpture. So if the talk doesn't go well, I brought my towel and I went to CVS this morning to get some Barbasol for y'all. So you and I both have a vested interest in this talk going well, right? All right, so anyway, there you go. So the talk is called InfoSec Career Tips I Learned from Santa, Dr. Seuss, and Other Friends. Now you can see who one of those other friends is right there. All right, I'd like to share with you some of the things that my friends have told me over the years that have greatly helped me in my career. But to kind of show you how this thing is going to work, I want to start out with, Dave mentioned stories. I want to start out with a story. Who here is familiar with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? I kind of hope everybody is, right? Have you ever really thought about the meaning of that story, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Let me tell you that story. There was a guy, a reindeer. He was born. He was unusual. He had a nonconformity. His nose, it was bright red. It was so bright, you might even say it glows. How did the world react to this? It was a disaster. They shunned him. They made fun of him. They used to laugh and call him names. He was so saddened by this thing. The world rejected Rudolph. It was terrible. So he self-exiled. He left. But that's not the end of the story. How does the story end? When the world figured out a way that they could use his unusual characteristics, the way that they could exploit his deformity, then and only then did they love him. They loved him so much that he'll go down in history. So what fundamentally is the lesson of the Rudolph story? They will shun you for your differences. They will mock you. They will hate you until they figure out how they can profit from that. And then and only then will they love you. So what do you do with that? This is a childhood story that we tell our kids. What do you do with that? Well, maybe you think you do this. Right? Now, I hear venison is pretty tasty, and that is one option, but you can't live your life like that, right? Instead, maybe we can retell the Rudolph story, a different way of looking at it. So the Rudolph story is about a guy who was born, reindeer, decent chap. He's a little unusual. He's got his nonconformity. People treat him badly for it. It happens. You see it every day, right? But what does he do? How does he react to that? When the world needs him, when the holiday season is threatened to be canceled, Rudolph steps up and takes care of the people who were mean to him, as well as all of his friends too, right? Hermie and Yukon Cornelius and all the other ones. That's another way of interpreting the same story. Rudolph helps people and tries to make the world a bit better place, despite the fact that the world didn't treat him so well. You see, what this is all about is perspective. Perspective. And what I'd like to share with you is some different perspectives on things that I've learned from my friends over the various years, and I hope these perspectives will help you in your career. You know, there's a guy on my team. His name is Daniel Pendolino. And Daniel said something to me a couple of months ago that made me really happy. We do this thing called the Holiday Hack Challenge. Has anybody here ever heard of the Holiday Hack Challenge? Have you guys played it? Thank you. You're not clapping for me, you're clapping for the team that makes it. And there's a team of like 20 to 25 artists around the world. Some of them work for me. We also have other artists like musicians and so forth that work on it. Really, really cool stuff, and I'm very honored to be able to work with them on that. Daniel is one of the guys that works on the operations of Holiday Hack Challenge. And what Daniel said is one of his favorite parts about Holiday Hack Challenge is how we often take a different perspective on some famous characters associated with the holiday season. Let me give you some examples. Holiday Hack Challenge 2015. Do you remember that one? It was the one that was sort of 8-bit graphics, and we had 8-bit audio, and the villain was Cindy Lou Who, age 62. Did anybody play that one? Cindy Lou Who, age 62. Yeah, she was so morphed by her interaction with the Grinch that by the time she grew up, she said, I'm going to do what the Grinch couldn't do. I am going to steal Christmas. How about that? So that was 2015. What Daniel said is we take other stories' heroes and make them our villains. We take other stories' villains and make them our heroes. 2016 Holiday Hack Challenge. Doctor Who frickin' kidnapped Santa Claus. That's what happened. Santa told me about it himself, yeah. 2017, Glinda, the so-called Good Witch. She is trying to incite a war between the elves of the North Pole and the Munchkins of Oz, so she could be a war profiteer, selling her spells to both sides. So Glinda the Good Witch was actually a pretty bad person. But likewise, if you go to like 2018, did anybody play Holiday Hack 2018 with KringleCon? Yeah, these are free to the community. You can go play it now. In fact, once you give your badge to Martin and Adrian, you can just go ahead and play Holiday Hack Challenge, right? So anyway, in Holiday Hack Challenge 2018, you see Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber from what movie? Die Hard, yes. Hans Gruber's there in the middle of Santa's castle. He's a bad guy, so you think. But by the time you get to the end, you realize that Hans Gruber's actually a good guy. He's working for Santa, just like Slugworth works for Wonka. My point here is perspective. And by flipping perspective, you can actually do some pretty interesting and amazing things. So that's kind of what this talk is about. Now look, I'm a weird guy. I admit it. I'm just a little hacker. I love being a hacker. I've been a hacker for decades, and it's how I want to go out. I want to go out as a hacker, right? I also go for long walks. It's kind of a life hack that I learned over 20 years ago. I walk every morning for at least a half hour, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and I think about things, but I also have conversations with some of my friends, some of my special friends. In fact, Santa Claus and I, we talk weekly. You should see this. I'm walking down the street, you see this strange guy with the hat, and he's talking out loud to Santa Claus. Yeah. Sometimes the neighbors make phone calls to my wife and say, hey, there's this weird guy walking around, and he's walking around your house. And she said, oh, that's my husband. Anyway, Santa Claus and I converse weekly. And my pals, including Santa and several others, have given me a lot of career advice that I'd like to share with you. Now, one of these strange and unusual characters who's given me advice over the years is this guy. All right? And let me tell you a little bit about my history with this guy, because it kind of leads up to how this talk was created. So I remember it well. DerbyCon 1. I got a call from Dave Kennedy, a guy I had recently met, and he said, hey, would you come and do a talk at this conference we're working on, DerbyCon 1? I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. I'd love to be there. And I was planning it, working on my talk. I was ready to do it. And about 3 weeks before the first DerbyCon, my wife was diagnosed with the return of her cancer. Her cancer had come back. We had fought it back a couple years before. It came back worse than ever. She needed major surgery. She needed chemo. She needed radiation. So I'm like, I can't go to DerbyCon. I gotta help take care of her, right? So I didn't want to just call Dave out of the blue saying, dude, I'm canceling. So instead I called my buddy Atlas. You guys know Atlas? Great guy. Yeah, he's going to be here. He might be here now. Is Atlas here? Anyway, so I call Atlas and say, hey, dude, I can't do this DerbyCon thing, whatever that is, but could you go in my place? And Atlas was like, sure, whatever you want. So I call Dave and say, Dave, sorry, I can't make it, but Atlas can go. So, phew, that was DerbyCon 1. All right, couple months before DerbyCon 2, I get a call from Dave. Dave's like, hey, can you come and do a talk at DerbyCon 2? And I'm like, dude, I can't. He's like, why not? It's like, well, I'm doing BrewCon, and it's like too close in time. He's like, oh, you can fly in between the two. It's just like a red eye. It's like, dude, I'd be a disaster if I were to speak. You have no idea. So he's like, okay, he backs off. Okay, no DerbyCon 2 for me. So I went over to Belgium. I did a presentation for WIM, and BrewCon was fantastic. Anybody here ever go to BrewCon? It's a great conference, wonderful stuff, yeah. So I did a presentation at BrewCon, and I'm telling you, my presentation finished, and people were like tweeting about the presentation. Within about 3 minutes of my presentation finishing, I get a text from Dave Kennedy. And he said in the text, next year, your ass is mine, Skoudis. So my first DerbyCon was DerbyCon 3, and I presented there. Now, I presented a couple since then. But for this presentation I'm about to give you, it's based on a conversation Dave and I were having about 3 weeks ago. Dave and I were at a party, and, you know, as one does, we were partying. So Dave says to me, it was kind of late at night, at least for me. He said, hey, Ed, would you want to do a presentation at DerbyCon? And I'm like, well, you know, what would you want it to be on? And here's what he said, positivity. And I'm like, how the heck do you do a presentation? I don't know, but I didn't want to say no to the guy. He's a nice guy, believe it or not, right? He's a nice guy. So I said, give me 48 hours to think about it, 48 hours. An hour later, Dave says to me, same party, he says, so dude, you're doing the presentation, right? I'm like, dude, I don't know, I got to think about how to do it. Give me 24 hours. 24 hours, I'll get back to you. And he's like, okay. Another 2 hours later, Dave comes back to me, and he's like, so you're doing it, aren't you, huh? And I'm like, dude, I don't know, I got to think through it. Can you give me an hour? Just give me an hour to think about it. 10 minutes later, he says, you're in, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. He's like, the guy is very persuasive. He said, let me film this. So, because he wanted to send it to, I don't know, Martin or something. He filmed me saying, okay, I'll do the talk. So here's the talk. But I started to brainstorm, you know, about 3 weeks ago, you know, how can I do a talk focused on what Dave asked me to speak on, that is positivity, but also to do it in a way that can kind of help people and help you in your career. So I came up with this talk, InfoSec Career Tips, based on lessons I've learned from my good friends. Now, oh, by the way, my wife, fantastic. She is doing great. She is a picture of health. Thank you. We live in an age of miracles. We really do. And modern medicine, it's not easy, but it can work some amazing, amazing things. She's healthier than I am. I love it. All right, now, for this presentation going forward, I need your help. Mark my words, I need your help, okay? Because I'm going to put some characters up on the screen. These are friends of mine, and I need you to tell me who they are, and then I'll tell you the lesson that I learned from them. This is sort of kind of interactive call-response kind of thing. You ready? All right, so here's my first set of friends. Who are these people? Phineas and Ferb, and you can't forget, Perry the Platypus. If you have not watched Phineas and Ferb, you are letting yourself down. You need to watch some Phineas and Ferb. It's great stuff. It's very creative. It's fun. It's silly. These are three, I guess, of the most creative individuals around. They're really incredible. They build like roller coasters in their backyard. They built a space shuttle. They do all these wonderful and amazing science experiments. They inspire me. And from them, I've learned a really important lesson. This is a really big lesson. People often don't understand creativity. You know, people think that creativity is like, I don't know, like Coke Zero inside a Coke bottle. And as you pour it out, you have less of it, right? As you exercise your creativity, you have less creativity. You've poured it out, right? No, nothing could be further from the truth. Creativity is more like a muscle that you work out and build. The more creative you are, the more creative you are. Kind of a tautology, but you know what I mean, right? And what can you learn from this? You learn from this, create. Start creating things, whatever it is. I was just talking to a guy, wonderful chap, last week, and he said to me the following. It's like a knife in my heart. He said, well, I'm just not very creative. It's like, dude, well, of course you're not creative because you think you're not creative. Start creating things. Whatever your thing is. Maybe it's poetry. Start writing some poems. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's code. Watch out for the off by one bugs. But maybe it's code and you like to write code. Start creating things. Maybe it's graphical arts. Maybe you do a DerbyCon logo for DerbyCon next year. Right, Dave? Maybe something like that. You need to work out your creative muscles like every day, or at least 3 or 4 times a week. Create something. Have fun. You don't even have to share it with the rest of the world, but create. All right, you guys good with that one? I got another one. I'm going to put up a friend here, and I want you to tell me who this friend is. Forrest Gump, yes. So Forrest Gump is a fascinating guy. In fact, sometimes I joke and say that I'm the Forrest Gump of the information security industry, because I just kind of wander around and bump into people, and hey, how's it going? And you're nice to them, and everything kind of works out, right? So, but what I learned from Forrest Gump is actually pretty deep and pretty profound. And I strongly urge you to incorporate this into your own interactions within the cybersecurity industry. Here's what I learned. Don't assume that you can't learn from someone who is dumber than you or who isn't as smart as you think you are. I'll tell you, I'm a teacher. I do some teaching for SANS. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. And there are some teachers who will tell you there's no such thing as a dumb question. They're wrong. There are some mind-bogglingly stupid questions. There just are. But here's something that I do as an instructor, as a coach, as a mentor. If I get, I'm sorry to call you out here, but if I get a dumb question, you don't say, well, that's a dumb question. Instead, you have an obligation, a sincere and firm obligation, to take that question that, let's admit, it's not very good, it's a dumb question, and you turn that into, you dig deep, and you turn that into an amazing answer that answers that direct question right there, but also builds on it so that the rest of the audience says, wow, that's a really, really insightful question because it triggered that amazing answer. You see? I had a friend who took my SANS class several years ago. His name was Usama. Not that Usama, a different one. Anyway, he was taking the class, and he came up to me at the end of day 2, and he said, I see what you're doing. I'm like, what do you mean you see what I'm doing? He said, you're taking really stupid questions and converting them into like really insightful and smart answers. And I'm like, nah, I would never do that. He says, that's what you're doing, Skoudis. I'm on to you. And I'm like, well, whatever. I don't know. So for day 3, 4, 5, and 6, Usama set about trying to come up with stupider and stupider and stupider questions to put me through my paces. Wow, that was really something. But there's a sincere point here, and that is, maybe it is true that there's no such thing as a dumb question. Because if it is a dumb question, that's on the instructor or the coach or the mentor. That person didn't turn what might on the surface seem like a dumb question into something actually interesting, deep, and profound. And you, as instructors, as coaches, as mentors, need to do that. Because at some level, we're all, thank you, that person appreciated the point, right? Because we're all instructors, mentors, and coaches at some point in our life. One other point I take from this Forrest Gump thing. You're probably not as smart as you think you are. I know I'm not. In fact, I assume when I walk into a room, even a room with, how many people are here? 20? How many? 3,000 people. Even when I walk into a room with 3,000 people, I assume I'm the dumbest person there, and everything just kind of works out all right, you know? So in information security, in cybersecurity, if you want to call it that, really, you need to have sort of an attitude where you're helping the community and you're working with people and not judging them based on your perception of their intellectual capability versus your own. Don't spend time thinking about how smart you are. That is a complete waste of your time. I try to avoid it. Now, sometimes your mind kind of goes there. Forget it. Just say, no, that's not interesting to me. And if you think about how smart or dumb other people are, that's really not a useful use of your time either. Okay? All right, so let's go to our next one. Who do we have next? You ready? You got to tell me who this is. The Beatles. Yes, you guys are really good at this game. All right. I'm not focused on all of the Beatles here. I'd like to focus on that one. You see kind of in the center of the picture where everybody else is around him. What's his name? Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr. Very interesting guy. And what did I learn from my good friend Ringo that might benefit you? Surround yourself with people vastly more talented than you. Yes. Now, There are maybe 2 or 3 people in this room that are offended saying Ringo Starr was a brilliant musician. He was fantastic. But I'm comparing him to John Lennon and Paul McCartney and George Harrison. In fact, check this out. There was an interview once of John Lennon, and they asked John Lennon, is Ringo Starr the best drummer in the world? And John Lennon responded, he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. Wow. But the point is, there have been surveys. They survey people saying, if you could go out and have a drink with any one of the Beatles, which one would you go out with? And hands down, Ringo Starr wins every time. Because Ringo's just kind of a good guy, a fun guy. Look, you might want to go out with John Lennon, and I realize he's deceased, but living or dead, which one would you want to go out with? Ringo Starr wins. You might want to go out with John Lennon for amazing philosophical discussions, or Paul McCartney to discuss music or something like that, or George Harrison to just get kind of weirded out or something. But anyway, Ringo Starr realized the power of surrounding himself with some of the most talented people ever, and it turned out really, really well for him. The lesson that I take from this is most of life is not a zero-sum game. Your success does not mean my failure. In fact, I want to set things up so that your success helps my success, and we work together, and I want to celebrate your victories. I want to celebrate your wins. I want the world to see how fantastic you are, and then I'll just bask in your glow, right? It's a wonderful thing. When somebody else does well, that doesn't mean you've done bad. You celebrate their victory, celebrate their win, okay? And like I told you, this is actually pretty easy for me to do because I just assume I'm the stupidest guy in the room. So I hire people who are smarter than me. That's the only people I hire. It's not a very hard thing to do, you see, right? Because I'm pretty dumb. But the fact is, I already have me. I don't need another me. I need people who are vastly better than me at a variety of different things. And I'm so honored to work with the team that I'm able to work with. All right, so that's what I learned from Ringo Starr. You ready for the next one? You don't sound ready. Now see, here, okay. My sincere hope is, well, I understand that not all of these tips will help all of you. But my hope is that some of the tips will help some of you. It might be that 2 months from now or 2 years from now, you've got a decision to make or you've got a thing to think through in your career, and maybe you won't remember me. But maybe you'll remember my friends. You'll remember the stories from these friends. That's my sincere hope. So with that said, are you ready now? All right, who's next? Who's this guy? Santa Claus. Yeah, you know him. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, so Santa Claus. He's a good chap, right? Have you ever thought about what Santa faces and where he lives? I mean, he lives at the North Pole, right? You think, well, he's got a good gig going up there, right? Actually, the North Pole is a frozen wasteland. It is a land of scarcity. There ain't much up there, right? It's cold. The winters are terrible. I mean, thank goodness we had Rudolph to save that one time, right? But what Santa has done is he has carved out something for himself up at the North Pole so that he and the elves and the reindeer are able to not only sustain themselves, but they're able to share holiday happiness and joy with the rest of the world. In other words, what Santa has is the abundance mentality. Santa doesn't look at scarcity and say, oh, I don't have much, there's therefore not much that I can do. Santa says, how can I leverage the resources that I have? Albeit maybe limited, but how can I leverage that to invest in people and to help the community? That's what Santa really does. You see, if you are focused on the scarcity, that will make your life smaller and make you more limited and make you very risk-averse. But if you understand that through your skills and talents in the most amazing industry around, cybersecurity, you can actually leverage things and help make your own career better and everyone else's. This is the abundance mentality, and Santa is, I just think, a fantastic example of it. And what a great community we have. I mean, it is, I'll be honest with you, it is a pretty cool place and time to work in cybersecurity, especially if you have the abundance mentality. Jobs are plentiful. Look, I understand sometimes people get laid off, different companies have different things that they're doing and such. The economy can be a struggle, but we have very low unemployment in this industry. There is an abundance of work for us to do. In fact, we have far more work than we can actually do. It is a great time in this industry to have that abundance mentality, to embrace that, and just do some freaking amazing work. All right, you ready for the next one? Here we go. Who's this guy? Winnie the Pooh. Have you ever talked to Winnie the Pooh? I tell you, he's a little weird. He's kind of out there, right? But Winnie's a really sweet bear. And one of the things that I learned from Winnie is this. You need to savor things. Every single day, savor something. Just really appreciate it, whatever it might be. Look, I know the world can be a hard place. I know that there's depression. I know that there's disease. I know that the economics sometimes are really hard. Can't afford very much. But there's something in everyone's life to savor every single day. You could savor a nice meal. You say, dude, I can't afford a nice meal. Well, go out for fast food. Some of that fast food is pretty darn tasty. Just ask Trevor, right? So, very tasty food. Or how about this? Have you ever just felt sunshine on your face? I'm getting chills just thinking about this. And just kind of said, that's wonderful. Savor the feeling of sunshine on your face. Or even this. You ready? A breath. Have you ever savored just taking a breath? Let's all do that right now. You do it with me, okay? You ready? We're just going to take a deep breath and savor it. Ready? Go. Ah, do you feel it? You feel it? Yeah. Now I'm here to tell you, that is the best DerbyCon is going to smell for the rest of the weekend. Yeah. It's all downhill from here with respect to the scent. So I hope you enjoyed that breath because it's the best you got. The other thing that I learned from Winnie here is never, ever, ever get used to it. It's just kind of a natural human thing. You know, things are going pretty well, and you just kind of take it for granted. You just get used to it. It's always going to be like this, right? No. These are wonderful, miraculous times. They're good times. They don't last. You know, at DerbyCon 6, was I sitting there thinking, we got 9 of these things, and then that's it? No. I was savoring DerbyCon 6. DerbyCon 7 is a different matter. No, I'm kidding. DerbyCon 7 was awesome. DerbyCon 7 was awesome. But never get used to it. Never get used to it. Things do come to an end. So embrace them, love them while they're happening. Never, ever get used to it. Cool. You ready for the next one? All right. I hope they don't get harder. They may get hard. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Next one. Can you see this very well? Who is that guy? John McClane. He's from that little movie Die Hard. And in Holiday Hack Challenge 2018, you found yourself in Santa's castle, and it becomes the Nakatomi Plaza, and you're stranded inside when it's under lockdown, and Hans Gruber is trying to extort Santa Claus. So what did I learn from John McClane? Persistence. The guy never gives up. Persistence, persistence. Even when he's by himself, he continues to move forward to his prize. But how does he do that? He does it by maintaining a light attitude and a light touch. He laughs at absurdity. The world is absurd. It absolutely is. And he laughs at that absurdity, not in a mocking fashion, but just in a humorous and light fashion. And one of the most important points of being able to laugh at absurdity is being able to laugh at the absurdity in yourself. Because we're all absurd in some way, right? And that's just part of the human condition. So being able to laugh at the circumstances, even when they're hard, sometimes finding that humor is difficult, but being able to laugh at that and being able to laugh at yourself, absolutely vital. I thank John McClane for that lesson. You guys ready for the next one? I think you are. Cool. Who's this? Mary Poppins. Yes. What did I learn from Mary Poppins? She's a delightful lady. I mean, she can be a little stern sometimes, but she's pretty cool. Here's what I learned from her. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I am not going to sing it for you like the lady here is. You sing very nicely, but I don't. So just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. On the surface, all this means is if you got to give somebody some hard news or some bad news, or there's a lot of work to be done, try to sweeten it up a little bit. You know, say some nice things with your tough things. Try to dance around while you're doing all this hard work. It does mean that, but there's actually more to it. If you dig into what my good friend Mary Poppins told me, it's that this is all about empathy. When you're talking to people, you have in your mind a mental model of that person. In my mind, I have a mental model of Dave Kennedy. It's not the perfect Dave Kennedy, that's the perfect Dave Kennedy, but I have a model when I talk to him, I can kind of anticipate how he's going to respond to various things that I say. When you take the advice of Mary Poppins here, what I'm telling you to do is as you're talking to someone, you need to structure what you're saying for them, not for yourself. You got to think about how they will interpret what you're saying and how they will digest that. And here's the hard part. You need to dynamically alter the way you're presenting your information based on how you see that person absorbing the information. Now, I explained this in the lab the other day because I was working on this talk, and Daniel, great guy, remember I mentioned Daniel earlier? He said, oh, so what you're trying to say is this, 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 and this. And I'm like, actually, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. In fact, I didn't do what I said I should do because I wasn't anticipating that you would interpret it that way. My mental model of Daniel was inaccurate, so I adjusted. I said, so let me re-explain it again. Anyway, empathy is important. Put yourself into other people's heads to think about how they're perceiving what you say and what you do. It will make you more effective as a communicator and somebody who has the ability to get stuff done. Right? Thank you, Mary Poppins. You ready for the next one? This one might be hard. I think you're up to it. Who's this? Laszlo who? Laszlo Holyfeld. And where's he from? Real Genius. Yes, remember the Real Genius movie? Right? And this is the guy. Where does he live? He lives in the closet in the steam tunnels underneath the university. That's absolutely right. So, do you want to hear a little secret? No? Who put you here? No? All right, well, I'm going to hear a secret. DerbyCon's canceled. Have a nice day. Now, do you guys want to hear a secret? All right, let me tell you a secret. Always have a secret room. And what I mean by this is, it's a storytelling tip. I teach a class on how to do storytelling. And I think Jeff's been in the class, some of the other people have been in the class. So it's just on how to tell stories. And one of the advanced storytelling techniques is to have a secret. They say that the four most powerful words in the English language for getting somebody's attention are, I need your help. Did you notice I started this presentation with I need your help? And then I think the second most powerful words in the English language to get someone's attention is, I have a secret, or want to hear a secret. Because people are like, well, of course, why wouldn't I want to hear a secret? You get their attention. They might be face off. He's telling them a secret right now. So I'm telling you, it's just as simple as a story to say, want to hear a secret? You got their attention. They want to hear. You got to have something to tell them that's interesting, at least, right? Right? So always have a secret room. Almost always have a secret in your story, something that you reveal. It doesn't have to be so much, hey, I've got a secret or want to hear a secret. You could withhold some information that's important to your story to keep your person kind of tugging along. I remember I first came across this technique about 10 years ago in storytelling, and I was experimenting with it. And I would hold back certain parts of stories as I was telling the stories, and I wasn't doing it very well. I was kind of ham-fisted in the whole thing, and it was pissing my wife off. I'd be telling some story, and she'd start asking me questions about this or that I was leaving out. Like, I'm leaving that out. I'll tell you later. No. So the easiest way to implement this technique in storytelling is just simply to say, want to hear a secret. There are more subtle ways to do that where you withhold information, but they're hard, and I'm still working on them myself. All right, you ready for the next one? Cool. Who's this guy? Doc Brown. Don't you love this guy? Fantastic. What did I learn from Doc Brown? Doc Brown taught me that you need to continually experiment and learn in your own laboratory. How many people here have a laboratory where they can do their technical hands-on? That's fantastic. If you did not raise your hand because you don't have a laboratory, you must get one. You have to build yourself a laboratory. Places where you can go and experiment and just see how the various information systems, the various cyber equipment, ICS, whatever it is that's your gig, how it's actually functioning in the real world. And you can only do that if you have a laboratory and that you have dedicated time to invest in yourself working in that laboratory. Seriously, if you don't have a lab, get one. You might say, well, I'm not a technical person. Well, you should be. I mean, at least a little bit, right? Set up a Windows box and look at how the password settings work. Just start experimenting. Grow more and more and more. Yes. Cool. And look, I know there's plentiful jobs that aren't involved with technical work in cybersecurity. I do get that. But everybody kind of amping up a little of their technical knowledge through their own laboratory would serve this industry well, right? Cool. Next. Who's this guy? Billy Joel. I went through this talk in the office the other day, and pretty much nobody recognized him. Yeah. Does anybody recognize not only Billy Joel, but the video of which song this still came from? Keeping the Faith. This is something, this one line from this one song Really, really powerful. The good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow's not as bad as it seems, right? I think that every day. Every day, it just comes to me. I don't even have to make a point of thinking it. It just happens in my brain. You know, the good old days weren't always good. Tomorrow's not as bad as it seems. Why is this so important and meaningful to me when my good friend Billy Joel told me about it? I really like history. I really like the past. It just comes alive. I built myself a giant steampunk office because I like that. I collect antiques and things like that. Usually antique crypto systems or antique electric gadgets and stuff because it's fun for me. And I thought to myself, or I think to myself, why is it that I like the past so much? What is it about it? You know, I'm talking like 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 20 years ago, right? For some of you, 20 years ago seems like a really long time, right? Why do I like the past so much? And I thought, well, first of all, there's some great stories, and I love stories. Stories are fantastic. But then I thought, it's not just the stories, it's also the people. There's some fascinating people from those time frames, right? But then when I get really honest with myself, want to hear a secret? When I get really honest with myself, I say, I think the reason I like the past so much is because I know how it turns out. It's safe. There were some really bad times in the past, right? World War I don't think this is going to be controversial. World War I sucked. Anybody disagree? That sucked. What a disaster. Or the so-called Civil War. Man, what a train wreck that was, right? Bad stuff. But I know how it turns out. And we kind of made it through, right? So the past has sort of a bounded badness to it. Nazism, Hitler, all that stuff sucked. It was bad. But I kind of know how it turned out. And I think that's why I like the past. Because, you know, we don't know how it's going to turn out going forward. The future is scary. Who knows what's going to happen, right? But I remind myself, the good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow's not as bad as it seems. Now, what's out of that equation? You got the past, you got the future, tomorrow. What's left out of there? The present. And I'm here to tell you, the present is the only thing you have any control over. So leverage that control to make tomorrow better. You see what I'm saying here? It's really, really important. You can't really control the future. You can't really control the past. You can learn more about the past, and because of what you learn in the past, you can act in the present to influence the future. Think about it that way, but the present is all we have, my friends. So savor the present and work in the present to make the future a better place. Billy Joel told me to tell you. And if you look at our industry, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, our industry, this time is so incredible because there's so much dynamism, so many things happening in this industry. Not only is it good jobs with an abundance mentality kind of stuff that I talked about with Santa Claus, but also is a great place to contribute to the community. It's a great place for you to be a mentor or an instructor or a coach to help out other people so that you can invest your skills, your capabilities, your creativity to help make the future a better place. And that's what DerbyCon was all about, Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown's not in here, but that is what DerbyCon was all about. Now I have two more for you, okay? Next one. Who's this? The Cat in the Hat. But let's not focus on the character. Let's focus on the person who created the character. Who created this character? Dr. Seuss, also known as? Theodore Geisel. Yes. He said something. Dr. Seuss said something really important and powerful. And reflecting on the last DerbyCon, I thought this, and I saw this. Dr. Seuss has been telling me this for years, but when I first heard this is the last DerbyCon, here's the first thing that came to my mind. Don't cry because it's over, Dave Kennedy. Smile because it happened. Isn't that lovely? Yes. So what this is it's about savoring things even after they're past. You see? And that's going to help you get to the future better. This is so beautiful and so powerful, I had to put it up. And I'm sorry to personalize it to say Dave Kennedy, but it's for every single one of you, right? Don't cry because it's over. Smile because we had 9 DerbyCons. 9 of the darn things. Isn't that incredible? Think about it. You're not entitled in life to even 1 DerbyCon. And some people raise their hand and got 9. I only got 7 because I missed the first 2, but that is wonderful. And honestly, DerbyCon, this sort of vibe, this community, as Dave mentioned this morning when he opened things up, it's going to continue, maybe not in a conference form like this, but instead in a community through various other conferences, through various projects that people do, through our memories, our discussions, through the friendships that we've made here. DerbyCon as a conference is drawing to a close in a couple of days. We still have one more left, right? But DerbyCon's not over. I have one more for you. Last one. You ready? I need full names. You have to give me full names, okay? Last one. Who are these guys? You guys are so good. Some people said Bill and Ted. Okay, I'll give you 50% credit. I heard this one guy scream out, Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan. Yes, these profound philosophers have a lot to offer us. So much depth. What was their mantra that they imparted into the world? What was it that they tried to tell everyone that followed the wild stallions? Well, be excellent to each other. This is my call to you as we work our way through this most wonderful 9th DerbyCon. And that is, be excellent to each other. Now, what does that mean? It means not only treating people well and being positive and supporting each other. It also means, frankly, loving them. Now, I know that's kind of hard sometimes, right? Sometimes people are pretty darn unlovable. But you need to love them anyway, you know? Be excellent to each other. Oh, wait, but that's not their entire mantra. What's the whole mantra? There's one point that comes after that. And party on. Exactly. Savor this DerbyCon. Savor your time together. Have fun. Work together as a community. While this might be the last DerbyCon conference, there will be DerbyCon in spirit going on forever. I'd like to open it up to questions. Yes, sir. The handsome young man in the front. Oh, the gentleman wants to see the shaving cream part. All right, well, let's see how we... Here, sir. Looks like you could use this. It's my gift to you. There you go. All right. Thank you for your wonderful question. Any other questions, thoughts? Any thoughts, Dave? Oh, thank you. Guys, can we give a round of applause to the DerbyCon staff and Dave Kennedy? So, I have 2 of these left, so Dave and I are going to do a duet of... Is there a question over here? Oh. The person was about to say, hey, if you want to be excellent, some caffeine can help, but the person also said, if you want to go with the shaving cream, go ahead. So I'm good, thank you, I appreciate that. I did shave this morning before I came. But thank you guys for your time and attention. They're going to have an amazing panel coming up next, and I really do appreciate all the opportunities for speaking. Oh, there's another question. Oh, any conferences that I recommend for next year? Well, David already mentioned some, but I tell you, Wild West Hackenfest is fantastic. John Strand and his team at Black Hills Information Security do a great conference. There have been 2 so far. I've been to both of them. I spoke at both of them. I'm going to speak at this one. Oh, and I got a weird talk for this one. Oh my God, totally different from this talk, but I'll be speaking at Wild West Hackenfest. Comes up, what is it, October or something. And so that's a great one. I do love ShmooCon. I've been to many of the years of ShmooCon. I go to DEF CON. I know some people think DEF CON is just way too big. My advice to you is don't think of DEF CON as a conference because it's way too big. Think of it as a series of small cons, and it makes it much more digestible. And don't get upset when you can't go to everything, because you can't go to everything. So when I kind of flip my view of DEF CON as a series of very small cons, I started to love it again. Yep. Yes, sir. KringleCon 2. Dude, here. Yeah, this is for you, sir. Enjoy. All right, I have one more parting gift here. I have not, just so you know, I took it from my hotel room. I did not use it today. Okay. So the gentleman asked about KringleCon 2. So last year, Santa Claus told me that he wanted to host a free conference at the North Pole. Now, I don't know if you've ever traveled to the North Pole, but travel conditions are quite treacherous up there. But through the magic of an HTML5 browser with cascading style sheets, you could just get transported to the North Pole to see a series of talks. And we ran KringleCon 1 last year. KringleCon 1 was a success. We had 22 speakers. Dave Kennedy keynoted it. Thank you, Dave. By the way, it's still up. You can go and watch Dave's keynote from last year's KringleCon. It's superb, superb. We asked all of the speakers to present like 12 to 18 minutes of stuff because you're watching it inside of Santa's castle. Dave took, I think, 48 minutes. But it's Dave Kennedy, so it's all good. So Santa was so delighted with how KringleCon 1 went, he is now going to do KringleCon 2. I'm in daily discussions with Santa about KringleCon 2, and I'll give you a little, so this is Holiday Hack Challenge 2019. And I'll tell you, we're releasing some information early on this one. It's called KringleCon 2 Turtle Doves. Now, we kind of took that idea from DerbyCon. You know, DerbyCon Evolution, DerbyCon, you know, Finish Line, DerbyCon. So we're KringleCon 2 Turtle Doves. We figure we can milk this for like another 11 of them or so, right? Anyway, so KringleCon 2 Turtle Doves, and here's the deal. There are turtle doves at KringleCon 2. Now, Santa last year, his venue was his castle, and we thought it would be big enough to support all of you guys. But there were 17,500 people that went to KringleCon 1. 17,500. We were amazed and happy. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. So this year, Santa needed to host it in another venue. The biggest venue at the North Pole, I probably don't have to tell you this, you know it, it's Elf University. We call it Elf U for short. Anyway, so KringleCon 2 Turtle Doves will be held at Elf University. We'll be launching about the second week or so of December. The elves are working hard on it right now. And one little plot point I want to give you from it. Thank you so much for asking. Enjoy the saving cream. One little plot point. The turtle doves, the very mascot of the conference, are missing. They're gone. We don't know where they went. Santa is really worried that this is the start of some big nefarious thing. When you get into, this is completely free, please understand, you just go in there through your browser. When you get in there, you're going to talk to Santa, and he's going to say, look, the turtle doves are gone. You have to find them. And once you find them, all kinds of crazy things happen. All right. Well, thank you for all your great questions. I do appreciate it. Great talking with you guys. Take care.